Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, HollywoodShono here, about to give you a very special Cooking with HollywoodShono daily vlog. Now, in this episode of Cooking with HollywoodShono, I want to give you guys all the ingredients that I use to make my world-famous bacon lasagna. Now, the ingredients are actually very simple. You can use, obviously, whatever you want in a lasagna. If you like vegetables, you can put vegetables in the lasagna. If you like putting meat in the lasagna, you can substitute that instead of bacon, or you can add that with it. You could basically put anything you want. If you want to put poop in there, you could probably do that. I don't recommend that, but you could put any ingredients that you want. You could put different types of cheese. I like to use Colby Jack because I like a more cheddary taste to my lasagna. You're definitely allowed to put in hot pepper. You're allowed to put in Havarti. This is just a rough guideline. So I use a 30-ounce container of ricotta, and usually I'll do about 10 ounces in the first layer in the middle of the lasagna and 1 or 2 layers before the top of the lasagna. My mom does not eat bacon, so I'll usually put bacon in 2 of the 3 sections. Usually my mom takes 1 section for herself. I will use pretty much the full can of tomato sauce in the very bottom layer, and then I'll spread out 2 full cans in between with a bunch of sauce covering the top just to kind of make it wet when it's done. Also very important to cover it up with aluminum foil, that way the top layers do not dry out. This is super important, and having extra sauce on the top is also important to keep the moisture level high, and so any excess sauce will actually go to the bottom of the lasagna. Now, as far as cheese goes, again, this is highly customizable. I love a more cheddary lasagna, so I use Colby Jack. I've used sharp cheddar, I've used triple cheddar, but you can do whatever. You can do full mozzarella, you can do full Italian. The prep work is about 45 minutes at 375 degrees. You can go a little bit higher, you can go up to an hour, depending, but if you have the oven preheated, basically about 45 minutes at 375 is good enough. And lasagna is one of those foods that are even better after you prep it for the first day. So we're gonna go into the kitchen, we're gonna fry up the bacon, and then I'm gonna show you guys a little bit more as far as the prep goes. Now I want you guys to take no mind to the way the kitchen looks. I know that we got to clean the stove and the wall and whatnot. The first thing you want to do is heat your pan up. That way you can prepare the bacon on here. And then we are going to go put some bacon right on the stove. Now, a couple things to notice when you're frying the bacon is that it gets really greasy and really messy. And if you do not have a deep pan like I do, you might have to actually change out the grease after about half a strip of bacon. I know Lydia killed me when I made bacon with the frying pan and poured grease down the sink and caused an issue. So don't do like me. Make sure that you flush it in the snow. Don't flush it down the drain if you can. And then turn the bacon after about a minute. And then you want to check for it. Depends on how crispy you like it. Again, I like to cook some of the grease out. So it's really dependent on how much grease you like in your bacon. And this is a process that you continue until you get rid of all the bacon right here. So then you're going to want to turn it. Obviously watch for splattering grease. You don't want grease splattering, especially on a camera. But this process will be repeated until all of the bacon is cooked. And then I'll show you guys how I layer my lasagna after all the bacon is cooked. Alright, so as you guys can see, we got our first layer of bacon completely fried. I like it crispy, not burnt. And there's the second one. You can see the grease is starting to form quite a bit more. And usually I have to wash my hands between each strip of bacon going in because it is super greasy and messy. And I especially have to do it because I'm filming. So this is what the bacon looks like after it's fried. And we're going to rinse and repeat this process until we get all of the bacon cooked. Okay, so we are frying up the last strips of bacon, and one thing you always want to watch for is the amount of sizzle. If you hear there's a lot of sizzle, that means the bacon fat is getting cooked out of it, and you probably want to leave it in for a little bit. Again, I like to fry the fat out of the bacon, and for those of you guys wondering, this is how I like my bacon. Nice and crispy, not too dark. So we'll let this go for a minute, and you guys can see exactly how I turned it and whatnot. But now at this point, now that we're down to the end of the bacon, you can see that the grease is kind of engulfing it. Like when you start off, the grease is not really there. So this is an indication that it's warmed up, and it won't take as long to cook. And obviously, if you have some folded up corners, you probably want to address that. But by the 4th layer, you will always have grease flowing from your pan. And as long as you have a deep pan, you don't have to worry about any of it going over. So yeah, you can't deny that this bacon looks great. Now that you hear the sizzle go down, turn it, because it's probably cooked enough. that the sizzle goes down. Usually the sizzle is big when there's a lot of fat, and also the temperature difference of the bacon is significantly higher than the actual pan, so it'll sizzle a lot more. But now that the bacon is warmed up, you can tell that it's gone. So we're going to get the little last bit here. And again, because the grease is engulfing it, it's not going to take as long to cook. So you also have to keep that in mind. Each strip goes for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe. The bacon prep is about 15 minutes. Again, you don't have to do this, but I like to cook the grease out of the bacon. You can put the bacon as is, but it's still better to cook the bacon. You get the grease out, the stuff that you don't want in your system, just a little bit better. Alright, so for the next part of this daily vlog, we're going to actually set up the lasagna itself. Now, I've uncovered everything except for the ricotta, so I'm going to go do that real quick before we actually get started with everything. Okay. Now to start off with my lasagna, I like to layer a lot of sauce down. Pretty much the full first can will go towards just sauce. That way the bottom doesn't get dry. It's very important that you have a wet bottom. Otherwise, your bottom layer of lasagna is not going to be fun to eat and you're going to be picking around it. Next up, obviously, is the layers of lasagna. Now, the back row here is the one I don't put bacon on. And the first ingredient I always throw on is sauce. It's always sauce. And usually by the first layer, the first can is always gone. Your mileage may vary, but this is how I make lasagna. The way you make lasagna might be different, and I'm sure it could be better than mine too. But this is how I make lasagna. Next up, on the first layer, I'll usually put the first row of ricotta in. I'll do it over 3 batches, so you can see how this goes. And you don't have to be gentle with your initial placement. Usually about 6 good scoops will get you the 10 ounces you need. And then throw a 7th on for good measure. Yeah, it's just like Bob Ross's painting. It doesn't matter if you have a solid movement or if you have a little bit of a jerk. Sometimes a jerk could be better. You could get the ricotta right off your lasagna a little bit easier, right onto the pan where it needs to be. Hands have been properly washed. This is a COVID-friendly cooking. So now I'm going to layer the bacon. I always do the bacon before the cheese because that usually goes on last. And a tip from Jennifer a couple years ago, break the bacon. Makes it easier to eat instead of one big lump, because when you cook it, and especially when you microwave it, the layers are going to be soft. So it's going to be a pain in the ass to actually cut through. Where if it's already broken, you've already done that. So I'm going to save the mozzarella. Again, you can use whatever, but I'm going to save the mozzarella for the last bit, meaning the top layer. And usually I do about half a bag per layer. There's 9 layers altogether. Actually, there's about 7 layers per lasagna. The top layer doesn't matter as much what cheese you put on, because you usually put Parmesan on that layer anyways. So now this layer will be a straight up sauce, bacon, cheese. Easy. And depending on how much ricotta we have left, the next layer will be ricotta. Now we're being a little more conservative with the sauce because we have a big layer of sauce already. Once again, we're going to cut the bacon up, rip it up. If there's any excess fat, you can either leave it on or take it off, depending on if you like fat. I don't like fat. And usually about 2 strips of bacon is good per row, roughly. You have 12 slices of bacon altogether. So if you're doing a full bacon lasagna, you might want 2 packs of bacon. But generally for how much I use, 2 slices is usually enough per row of bacon. Now we'll throw the rest of the Colby Jack from the first pack on. And like all shows, the best way to prepare is with no music. Bob Ross's better episodes had no music in it, which was basically every episode after the first season. Okay. Now we have about 10 rows of left. So this will be another ricotta row. And you can see that the back layer is not going to have as much because there's no bacon on it. Usually every other layer I'll put the ricotta on. I used to only use 15 ounces of ricotta, but I switched to 30. And it's been better received. It's cheesier. It's not as dry, even though it doesn't really matter too much. It does matter. Some people use ricotta every layer, and you're not wrong. Some people will do it every other layer like I do. So again, this will be a ricotta layer. It could be ricotta, depending if you're Italian. I say ricotta, you might say ricotta. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just how you prefer to say it, how you were raised to say it. There is no wrong answer to ricotta or ricotta. Okay, and we'll spread a little bit from the first layer over. This is much easier than trying to hold the camera while frying bacon. Okay, so you kind of want to even it out as much as you can. On the edges it don't matter as much because it's going to cook over it. Now we can throw some cheese. I'm going to leave bacon off this row just because I only have 12 pieces of bacon. Usually I have more. This one only has 12, so we're going to omit bacon from this row. Once again, usually about a half bag of cheese, and you can use however much you want, but I usually use about a half bag. That's generally enough for what I use. Just even it out. And if somebody doesn't like a certain cheese, don't put it on. Just because I'm using it doesn't mean you have to. Cheese is very customizable. One of my favorite things to eat. Okay, so we're almost through our second can of sauce. And we still have 3 rows of lasagna left. This is why I like using 3 cans of sauce, because you don't want a dry lasagna, especially on the top and bottom layers. That's why a 3rd can of sauce is always recommended. Alright, this will be another cheese layer. So this will finish off our Colby Jack, and then we're going to start our mozzarella. And then try to even it out. Don't be greedy and take all the cheese for yourself, knowing what you're going to make. Obviously, if you're cooking it, you can be however customizable you want. It's all up to you. Okay, we're going to throw bacon on this layer and the next layer. And then we'll probably be done with bacon, because for some reason, they didn't give us a lot of bacon in this one. So I'm actually going to be a little skimpier on bacon. That way I can use it on another row. Okay. And because this is 1 row from the top, this is going to get ricotta as well. And now since this can is low, instead of spooning it, just dump it on there. Low enough to where you don't need to worry about it. And again, I apologize for any master chefs that are complaining about my kitchen. If I did this for a living, it would be clean. Probably upgraded. I can't afford the big budgets like you. So if you're one of these people, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll straighten our layers out. And again, the bacon and ricotta will make the layers a little bit uneven and hard to maneuver sometimes, so you do have to keep that in mind. Now this is another ricotta roll. And again, depending on how much you use, you could have it on every row. You could have a 15-ounce can and use it twice. It's all up to you. Depends on how you like to do it. And the best part about lasagna is that it's highly customizable. You can put anything you want on it. Again, I don't recommend putting poop on there, but if that's your taste, go for it. If you like barbecue sauce in your lasagna instead of tomato sauce, you can do it. I don't think I'd ever do it, but it's an option. If that's what you like, put it in. If you like hot sauce, put it on. Nobody's saying you have to make a lasagna just like I do, but this is how I make a lasagna. And if you can appreciate that, take a second of your time, smash that like button, pass this on to your friends. But I wanted to do something different for the viewers today. I wanted to show you guys how I make lasagna. So the ricotta is gone. We're going to start using our third package of cheese. And if you don't like a cheesy lasagna, use 2 packages. If you like a super cheesy lasagna, use as much as you want. Just because I use 3, you could use more or you could use less. Now do keep in mind that most lasagna packages use an extra layer or 2. So keep that in mind when you're distributing cheese. You might need to cut back on a layer, or you might need to go nuts on a layer, depending on how much cheese you use. This is a rough guideline. And that is it on the bacon. So now in the final row I have 2 pieces of lasagna, which I'm taking, because it's my lasagna. My mom will get the short end of the stick. Okay, and you don't want to get aggressive on sauce. You want to stay conservative until the last row. That's where you put the rest of the sauce on, because you need to keep the top layer as moist as possible. And because of the bacon, the lasagna is probably more likely to go uneven and fall. But you can prevent that by taking your time. Okay. So again, we're going to be a little conservative on cheese on this row, at least on my rows. If you have a 6-ounce pack of Parmesan, this is probably when you'd break it out. Put it on the top of the lasagna. And again, because we have to put 2 rows of lasagna on, we have to be conservative with the last bit of cheese. So we're not going to use as much as we had been. And this is where I wish I had more bacon. Okay, so now is where you don't want to be cheap on sauce. This is where you want to go nuts on sauce. And I'm not saying pour the whole thing down so your layers fall over like that. But this is where you want to go nuts on sauce. Just drown it. Put it all on there. This is where the other layers can get covered. This is where layers can get combined. Just go nuts. Just drop it all in. Try to cover up as much of the edge as possible, because that'll make for a wetter lasagna. And I know you probably should put the last thing of cheese on, but I'm not doing that. The cheese does not burn when you have aluminum foil on it, but you do need to put the cheese on. And that is how you make a lasagna. Now for the final ingredient that is super important, Reynolds wrap. Wrap your lasagna. After skipping on foil, use 2 pieces. And then in the oven. Okay. Then we'll set the time for 375. And check it at 45 minutes. If it needs a little bit more, do an hour. I want to thank everybody for watching this Cooking with Hollywood Shono daily vlog. I appreciate every one of you guys taking the time out to watch me cook. Hope you guys enjoy this daily vlog. We'll probably see you tomorrow with Beth for another daily vlog. But it'll probably be Marvel Contest of Champions tomorrow.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. He'll sue the rest.